Let's bring in Margaret Synan and Connor McCarren. Connor actually popped in a couple of times in the middle of the show, so there he is. Hey, Connor, great to have you here officially. And Margaret, hey, Connor, how are you?
Hey, Chip, how's it going?
Good. We're all getting used to this, the Zoom digital technology. How do we all see each other? So, and Abdul there as well. Abdul Hakim is our director of customer success and managing our customers with doing a lot of work with Microsoft and SAP. So, and then Margaret. Hey, Margaret, good to see you joining as well. So, excellent. So I'm looking forward to this session to hear about the Embrace program, and I will let you guys take it away.
Thank you, Chip. Thank you. I appreciate it. And thanks, Gaurav and John and Addis for a great session. We've seen the amplified journey for the past 2 years here at WorkSpan, and it's great to hear from you. And we are grateful for you sharing your journey and your vision with us. And as a follow-on to that, I'm extremely excited to be speaking with Margaret and Connor today, talk about a pioneer co-sell program between SAP and Microsoft. For those of you who missed the introduction, Margaret is the worldwide lead for SAP Azure sales at Microsoft, and Connor is leading the go-to-market motions with the hyperscaler partners at SAP. The biggest hyperscaler partner that he's working with right now being Microsoft and Azure. So welcome, Margaret. Welcome, Connor. It's great to have you as part of ECS.
Yeah, thanks, Abdul, for having us, and apologies in advance. I've been disconnected a couple of times, so Margaret, you might need to shoulder the load a little bit on this one.
That's okay. And I really just want to say thank you so much for inviting me today. It's actually the first time I've ironed a shirt during quarantine and actually made an effort on my appearance. So it's actually a healthy thing.
We're glad you did that. So Connor, maybe you can start us off here. There's been a lot of positive press about Embrace. There was an announcement by SAP around October last year, about 6 or 7 months ago, on this being a flagship program that you guys are going to run at SAP in partnership with Microsoft. But for those in the audience, maybe you could give a very high-level perspective on what does it mean for SAP on the Embrace program. And then I'll go to Margaret as well. We'd love to hear Microsoft's perspective as well at a high perspective. So, Connor?
Yeah, definitely, Abdul. So maybe it'd be good to go into a little bit around the genesis of Embrace, how it came about, what we're really looking to achieve at SAP between our partnership with Microsoft, and then we can, toss it over to Margaret for a little bit more details. But when we initially had that initial conversations and announcement around Embrace, really the genesis came from some core challenges and market trends that we saw from our customers. They centered around, we saw a lot of our customers moving to, the cloud infrastructure hosting providers, hyperscaler providers like Microsoft and their competitors. It was a large market trend that we saw out there. Yet there was a lot of differing opinions from ourselves at SAP, from the hyperscaler partners, as well as, our GSSP or GSI partners around that overall movement from that SAP workload into that cloud infrastructure environment, and what really represented the best practices to be able to manage that overall process. So the genesis of Embrace was meant to be able to solve that, create one single coherent and unified message that we can present to customers. And it was the official go-to-market motion and stance that SAP took for that overall movement and transition that a lot of our customers were overtaking, making sure that primarily centered around accelerating their move to S4 HANA in the cloud, and the adoption of SAP Cloud Platform as that primary abstraction layer between their cloud infrastructure hosting provider and their SAP environment, to be able to integrate those two different environments together, extend out that environment together, and leverage a lot of the innovative capabilities that are inherent within Microsoft and SAP moving forward. So that was the official stance. Embrace was really that overall motion that packaged that S4 HANA move and SAP Cloud Platform components together into one go-to-market motion. And really Microsoft stepped up to the plate and said, you know, they wanted to be able to, they saw the value in that one coherent message. They wanted to not only be able to, you know, champion this with SAP moving forward, but also be able to, you know, sell this on their own paper with regards to SAP Cloud Platform and join in this Embrace partnership with us. So it's been really good since that initial announcement, getting a lot of our teams coordinated, our teams enabled, and working on, you know, joint sales activities together.
Great. And just from Microsoft's perspective, I will say that under the leadership of Satya Nadella, we all know that customer success equals Microsoft success. So when we started to receive feedback from our SAP on Azure customers, that they were getting 3 different opinions and recommendations from both SAP, Microsoft, and our partners, we knew that we had to get much stronger alignment and ensure that all 3 parties were actually singing from the same hymn book. So Microsoft's objectives with Embrace was twofold. We wanted to build, maintain, and leverage deep relationships with both business and technical decision makers. And we also wanted to accelerate the solution delivery for S4 and Azure, as well as improve our customer experience.
And to just drill down a little further on that, Margaret. So you know, that's at a very high level. That's Microsoft and SAP are looking to do this. But specific motivations when it comes to a co-selling program like this, when SAP is sitting on top of the Azure stack, S4 HANA being on top of the Azure stack, what are specific motivations for Microsoft on that program level?
Yeah, so for our sellers, the ultimate goal is to get Azure consumption. That's ultimately what it is. And so it was really important that we needed to ensure that our sellers were not competing with SAP and that we're actually complementing one another's offerings that were available. So we definitely had to take out of the equation that HANA, the database, was competing against SQL, the database.
Yeah. And anything, as in you speak about, you know, this being a program where there's a lot of trust that needs to be established between 2 large organizations as such, right? Speak to a little bit about the trust and managing the components of this joint sales motion.
Do you want to talk about that, Connor, or me?
Yeah, sure. I could jump in there. So, you know, at a high level, that was one of the things when we first entered into, you know, this Embrace go-to-market motion of one of the things that we realized right off the bat we needed to be able to achieve. Establish that level of trust between 2 large organizations, not only from, you know, the global people like Margaret and myself helping manage the partnership, but also, you know, the people on the ground within each prospective region to be able to coordinate on different accounts. These are, you know, different things that they want to be able to, you know, share information freely regarding each of those accounts, and really establishing that level of trust from the top down, from, you know, Satya down through, you know, SAP's leadership down to, you know, some of our global team members that are working on Embrace. That was one of the things that we immediately set out to do. And I think we've been able to achieve in these first couple of months running Embrace.
Yeah, so from Microsoft, we wanted to focus on 3 things. So firstly, we wanted a stronger partnership with SAP to better align, adopt and realize the long-term business value that customers make, and particularly when they're investing in both Azure, our partners' skills and capabilities, and also the SAP technology stack. Secondly, we also wanted to extend our existing partnership with SAP that went beyond SQL. So through the Embrace initiative, Microsoft became a reseller of the SAP Cloud Platform, which Connor already spoke about. But personally for us, that actually provided us with a competitive advantage that no other public cloud provider could claim. And finally, we wanted to ensure that we built a level of trust with SAP that had not existed previously. And I now realize that a big part of that was understanding the various cultures, processes, and KPIs of each company. And in fact, one of the biggest things that has come out of the partnership is my strong working relationship with Connor and also the Embrace ambassadors at SAP. And I actually now look at them as an extension of my own team. And I've formed a friendship with Connor as well.
All right. We're glad you're willing to admit that on a website. So drilling one step further, right? You know, it's all rose-tinted glasses. Everything's great. We're trying to kind of achieve all of these objectives. But a program of this scale and this size, and with the organizations the size of Microsoft and SAP, does not come with its own challenges. speak to a little bit about the specific tactical challenges that come about in a program like this and how you're addressing those challenges.
Sure, I can take that one first, Margaret, and then maybe toss it back over to you. So, as Margaret was mentioning, establishing that level of trust is first and foremost one of the things that we want to be able to achieve, as is the case with any two large organizations, but also being able to jointly organize joint sales pursuits per each region was one of the things that we immediately recognized as something that would be difficult between our two organizations, making sure we have the appropriate resources per each account and customer engagement, making sure we're able to jointly track pipeline moving forward through one joint tool where WorkSpan is able to come in and help us be able to do that, and making sure that there's some of the data consistency between SAP and Microsoft on joint KPIs that we're trying to work towards. A lot of that really centers around, as Margaret was mentioning, getting a better understanding of the commercials and the commercial models and how they're different between our two organizations. Microsoft's a lot more consumption based. Ours is a lot more licensed upfront based. Getting a better understanding of those different commercial models and letting our teams know from the sales perspective of who's carrying this moving forward within each region of what this really means to their customers, how they can jointly be able to work with Microsoft and the global systems integrators partners to be able to coordinate these activities and present a value proposition that, as I mentioned on the top, is one coherent message that we can then articulate to customers are some of the larger challenges that you have to be able to address and make sure people are connected in the right way, using tools and assets in the right way to be able to shape that narrative in the way that we really see as adding the most amount of value to our customers in this move to the, to SAP on Azure.
Mm-hmm.
And just from my side, so being a company who respects data privacy, we had to ensure the correct data integrity and boundaries were compliant. And perhaps we didn't do that earlier on in the cycle of getting this, the WorkSpan tool kicked off. We wanted to make sure that we met all the Gdpr requirements and that we only shared information that was really relevant to SAP. So today, Microsoft CRM system still remains the single source of truth. And we make sure that we actually upload our pipeline data to WorkSpan, ensuring that we retain that privacy and data accuracy. And as a Microsoft employee, I would hate to admit this, and there's been a little bit of criticism of that Excel, but it can be prone to error, particularly if there's human interaction and misalignment. So it was really important that we established the right process that eliminated that risk.
Yeah, just to add on to that, I think the joint sales and pipeline reviews, the way that WorkSpan has been able to help us coordinate that and have our regional teams work off of one single source of truth that's bringing in the consistent data that we have from Microsoft and SAP is something that we're really addressing some of the initial challenges that we saw as part of the Embrace program, and then being able to quickly ramp the internal and external awareness of Embrace and making sure that our teams per each region are using the same assets to do that is something that we're also seeing as a part of, WorkSpan and as a tool that we want to be able to leverage moving forward.
Yeah, that's very important perspective and kind of making sure that there's a compliance angle to this while there is the collaboration piece as well. And challenges like these are common. In the best of times, these would be challenges for running a program like this. But as is quite evident with the state of my hair, this is not the best of times. These are not normal times. As in, we can have a conversation about my hair later. Point being, my hair is a joke, but COVID-19 is not. And the disruption, just the public health crisis, as well as the economic disruption that is coming with COVID-19 has shifted a lot of business models. And how has your program changed and how has your objectives changed over these uncertain times? And how have you coped with those challenges? Have there been new challenges or these existing challenges gotten worse? What are your perspectives there?
So when we moved into lockdown, Microsoft actually introduced a COVID tag into our CRM system. And this enabled us to identify the impact on certain opportunities in markets. And we generally fell into three categories. There were actually going to be opportunities that postponed, they were going to be reprioritized, or they're actually opportunities that accelerated. So we clearly allocated them into those 3 buckets. The great thing about having a really agile sales workforce, which is what I think we have, and we've also got the processes around that, is that I know at any point in time, I can actually customize the integration that we feed into WorkSpan, and I can reflect those changes with SAP almost instantaneously.
Yeah. And then just regarding like the overall process, it was already kind of difficult to get our teams able to, work together and talk around a prescriptive approach to, this journey of SAP on Azure. Doing so remotely makes it a little bit more difficult, but I think there are additional items and talking points that we can be able to address during during these different conversations that our teams are jointly having in preparation for a customer conversation. A lot of the times we are providing, prescriptive approaches per each industry on how they should best leverage SAP and Microsoft solutions and services moving forward. We're beginning to integrate some of the best practices that we see with the, recent pandemic around COVID-19 on how to implement some of those best practices into these industry views that we're showing to customers. So that's something else that I think, could provide a potential value add. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done there, but, we've got the agility to be able to get it done, and we have the overall framework per each industry to be able to add and adapt as needed.
Yeah. So it's as in you hit up on 2 points there. The fact that you have to be agile with moving businesses, you need to move with the trends that are going, but also having a flexible platform there that can help you move with that, help you be agile, because you could move as fast as you want, but if there is not an underlying platform that can move at the pace that you want, it could be a challenge there as well. Yep. A last question from me. And as you kind of project out to the future, right? Amit alluded to this earlier. As we emerge out of this, it's going to be a post-digital world. And in this post-digital world, where do you see Embrace kind of evolving? How do you see it maturing? What do you think is going to be the next trends? And for the audience here who are kind of sitting on the fence on similar programs like this, what would you share as learnings and best practices and things that you have gone through to kind of help this transition easier, or kind of take that jump on forward?
Yeah, I'll kick things off first, and then Margaret, you can jump in. So, really we see the Embrace partner program evolving a lot over the coming, years. It's still relatively new. As you mentioned, we had that initial announcement back in October. And I think really what it boils down to is including a lot of the other aspects of SAP and Microsoft and our partner ecosystems into this overall engagement. We have the general framework that's already in place around SAP and Microsoft, making sure we're working through the different commercial models, and we've put those different things in place. It's now around expanding that out, scaling that out to different regions as well as different partners. So getting our, GSSPs or GSIs more involved in the Embrace program and letting them be able to, add additional capabilities into that prescriptive approach that we're already showing our customers, and showing how they can add to and leverage their existing SAP on Azure practices to, accelerate and safeguard that move to S4 on Azure. And really growing the overall adoption of those S4 HANA, on Azure deployments, as well as the SAP Cloud Platform on Azure, with clearly defined global metrics that we'll be coordinating on through WorkSpan, is something that we really want to measure, because that's how we've been articulating to our customer base on how we envision them achieving that final end state of being an intelligent enterprise. So it's really continuing that overall engagement, connecting our regional leaders for them to be more up to date on enablement and the different assets that are available, and continuing that S4 HANA and SAP Cloud Platform on Azure discussion.
Yeah, and just reiterating that, I think there's phases of the project that we're doing, and at the moment we're just focusing on the SAP Cloud Platform, and we'll definitely introduce the system integrator community into those opportunities as well. We also want to incorporate HANA Enterprise Cloud on Azure as well, so that's another offering that SAP have that we can easily add on. And then finally, just across Microsoft, we've also got other independent software vendors where we co-sell their solutions. So there is a separate project that's going on in the use of the WorkSpan tool. Around advice, there's probably 4 things that I'd offer to anyone that's considering a massive project like this. Is I wish we had done this, but run through the end-to-end process and the experience as well. I wish we had have done that, because we would have identified errors or, you know, hiccups in the process, in the system. The second thing is I probably would have engaged our legal and privacy teams on data protection a lot earlier in the partnership, and just making sure we covered off on all those loopholes. I would have also leveraged the field as subject matter experts and planned for every possible scenario. And finally, I would have aligned, just make sure that you've actually got the right resources aligned. And I think the Intel person that was speaking before said exactly the same, having those local relationships to focus on local language and local relationships is really important. And when you scale something globally, it's the best way to scale.
Awesome. I could go on and on, but I got the virtual signal from Chip that he's ready to kick me out because I'm speaking too much. So Chip, back to you, and more questions from the audience.
It's that virtual signal that was coming in, right?
Yes, exactly.
That's the hook. That's the. Hey, you guys were terrific. Really great session. Abdul, great questions. Margaret, I loved how you sort of summarized with some learnings at the end. You know, data privacy is always you know, an interesting topic, and we, you know, but and sort of going through that, the folks, the customers that we have, many of you guys are on the line right now, take data privacy very seriously. So always a really important topic. So yes, we have a few questions in for you guys. So this was an interesting one from Scott Feldman. With Embrace and the strong alignment between SAP and Microsoft, what has been the impact of the other partners of SAP in the hyperscaler ecosystem? How do they still maintain that trust in their own partnerships?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's one that often comes up with regards to, you know, the Embrace program, and really those partnerships are still continuing as usual. We have SAP workloads that are certified on, you know, Google Cloud Platform and AWS. However, they haven't agreed to the overall go-to-market motion that we think is best served for our customers, which is Embrace. It is, you know, the acceleration of S4 HANA on Azure. And the adoption of SAP Cloud Platform to be able to integrate those two environments together. So, you know, therefore it's a little bit more, you know, rudimentary in the fact that it's just simple certifications on GCP, on AWS to allow our customers still that optionality of being able to deploy on either of those environments. However, it's not in our preferred go-to-market model of what we're suggesting to our customers is the best way to move to the intelligent enterprise in that cloud hosting environment.
Right.
And at Microsoft, we actually see the GSIs as fundamental. Without them, we can't actually deploy our solutions on Azure, and they've been integral with Embrace. They've actually helped develop market-approved journeys, and they're also going to help land the reference architectures that we've designed as well.
Excellent. We do have our first hand raised. So Tom Donegan, I just made it so that you can unmute your phone. Tom, do you have a question?
Yeah, so one of the questions I had, the only question I have for the team here is, at what point did you recognize that you needed to do something, and you know, what kind of sponsorships did you get to implement your program?
Right.
You know, maybe I can start with the high level of, you know, what point did we realize? And then Margaret, you can kind of touch on the next part, if that sounds okay. But yeah, from a high level perspective, we took a look at a lot of the customer trends that were out there regarding a lot of our S4 HANA deployments, where they were happening, where they weren't, and, you know, from the board level down, trying to get a better understanding of, you know, the current environment, how, you know, our partners were, you know, influencing customer decisions. And we quickly realized that we needed a more prescriptive approach around the deployment of S4 HANA in these cloud hyperscaler environments. So that was kind of, like I mentioned at the top, the genesis of Embrace, and why we mentioned that we needed to be able to correlate these, movements to S4 HANA and SAP Cloud Platform together with the hyperscaler, rather than, have conflicting messages when we're in front of customers. So that was when we realized that, and we talked with all of the different hyperscaler providers, and Microsoft was really the one to step up and say, we really, agree with that vision and think that's the right way forward for providing clarity and consistency to our joint customers.
Yeah, so we saw it as a competitive bid to actually be labelled as the preferred hyperscaler for the Embrace program against the other hyperscalers. And we definitely got executive sponsorship at the highest levels that you could possibly get. And we also established an Embrace team at Corp as well to help land this.
Great. Thanks a lot. I figured, Chip, you wanted people to raise their hand. I figured I'd be the first. Thanks. Thanks. It's very informative. I do appreciate it as someone, I work for Accenture, and I've been through SAP Azure projects before. So I could see where this definitely fits. So thanks a lot.
Thanks, Tom. Good question. We have another question actually from Scott Feldman. So his question is, what's been the impact of measurability of success of partner-driven lead gen programs, given the limited ability to gather customer information in the Gdpr era?
I don't think that there's been any limitations, because we've been quite prescriptive about what data we will and won't share. Mm-hmm. So we've already gone through the due diligence to ensure that that doesn't get exposed in the WorkSpan tool and get shared with SAP.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there was, some initial legal reviews that were done to be able to be GDPR compliant when we're sharing, SAP CRM and Microsoft MSX together into, this joint WorkSpan tool to collaborate on those. And it still is. And I mentioned this in something that I want to be able to carry out moving forward. Being able to take that data and that information and drive joint KPIs in WorkSpan around that data is something that we've started, but we still need to work on a little bit more to make sure that we're driving Azure consumption, we're accelerating S4 deployments, and there's clear SAP Cloud Platform adoption on Azure, and that consumption is happening, on Azure as well. So all of those things still need to be done a little bit more in depth, but from a GDPR perspective, the data coming in and being collaborated on is still, compliant, and we're able to do that effectively.
Yeah. Awesome. I think those are that's the end of the questions for you guys. This has been a fantastic session. You guys shared so much, and I just love the engagement. I can see that you guys are good partners together. So
great. And Chip, I should just mention Abdul's been a fabulous partner in this as well. So without his support in terms of getting this solution designed, we wouldn't be where we are today, would we, Connor?
No, not at all. So thanks, Abdul, and thanks, Chip, for helping organize this. Glad I was able to hop on with Margaret and answer some questions and give some, a summary of the Embrace program. So it's great.
Yeah, fantastic.
Thanks, Margaret. Thanks, Connor. I'll send you the checks later. Thanks for